A very good morning to you all and welcome to this European Cluster Collaboration Platform Clusters Talks on behalf of the European Commission's DG GROW. Today we're celebrating the 30th birthday of the single market. My name is Jennifer Baker. As always, I am your host today just to guide you through the agenda. So, of course, we know it's such a big achievement that we have got the single market. It's created in 1993. It's fostered jobs and growths and will deliver the twin transitions of delivering a greener future, a more digital future for Europe, and hopefully also tackle more up and coming problems like securing a clean and secure energy supply. So we're going to talk about all that, but also, of course, most importantly, how it is home to the cluster organizations and what sort of interaction there is between the clusters and their support organizations, as well as how we can develop further the single market. We're going to have, as always, starting with the news from the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, and then we will move on with a video reminding us of all those achievements of the single market, followed by a presentation from our two colleagues from DG GROW, and then the panel debate, as always, followed by another opportunities anniversary of the single market presentation from the European Commission, and finishing, as always, with Nina's updates on the funding opportunities. So please do use the Q&A to pose questions. You can also use the chat function, use that to share with our team, we will share the links there. You can use that to make comments, but try and use the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of the screen, if you want to ask questions. If you would also like to take part by raising your voice or showing your video, you can use the tab raise hand that's at the bottom of your screen. If you raise that, we will upgrade you and ask you to put your question to our experts and our panelists. Feel free to do that. We'd love to hear from as many people as possible, but unmute to speak. For those who are speaking, remember to mute when you're not speaking and turn off your camera when it's not your session, as the overall session will be recorded and will be published on the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, as well as its social media in the coming weeks. We will also be using Slido today. That's slido.com. You can go to that. The hashtag is single market, but I'll remind you a little bit more about that at the time. So I think that's us all set to start today. It's a lot to get through on this last session before the summer break. So I'm going to hand straight over to Nina Hopman to tell us the news.
Many thanks and good morning to everybody. We have the following news items with you to share. First of all, there is an open consultation for stakeholders and SMEs on COSME, the EU funding program for competitiveness of enterprises and SMEs that ran from 2014 to 2020. Consultation is open until the 18th of September, so please answer this consultation before that date. Just as a reminder, COSME supported, for example, the Enterprise Europe Network, Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, projects in tourism, social economy, but of course also projects for cluster internationalization and cluster excellence. So very important for the clusters also to respond, because the results will help the EC to improve future support programs for SMEs. The link is in the chat, so please click on that and answer this consultation. You can also check out the revamped confidence indicator for the industrial ecosystems. The confidence indicator provides sentiment and economic sentiment, so that you can check out both for all industrial ecosystems, but also on an individual level. So please have a look at this to see how your ecosystem is currently performing. Regarding Ukraine, there is news on further integration into the single market through the Connecting Europe facility. The CEF program will enable Ukrainian projects to apply for EU funding, especially in transport, energy, and digital. For example, in transport, Ukrainian authorities and companies can apply for transport calls under the current programming period. In energy, they can apply for projects of mutual interest, and in digital and connectivity projects, for example, to develop safe, secure, and sustainable high-performance infrastructure. More information you can read in the news article with the link in the chat. And talking about Ukraine, we invite you to an online meeting tomorrow at 9:30 of the Focus Group Ukraine on EU-Ukraine Business Cooperation. This group will provide valuable insights into EU policies and programs, as well as the current business environment in Ukraine. You see the agenda here in the screen, and you can still register to attend. It will take place tomorrow morning at 9:30 CET. So if you're interested, please come to the focus group Ukraine. You can also register for 2 matchmaking events that take place in South Africa on the 24th of October and 26th, and in Singapore, which I will show on the next slide. The one in South Africa will be held in the context of the Manufacturing Endeavour Conference and Exhibition, and will focus on agri-food, green industries, chemicals, metals, transport, digital, and textile. Deadline is extended for clusters and companies to register until the 2nd of August. So if you're interested and haven't done so yet, please register for this. And shortly afterwards, as I said, we go to Singapore on the 30th of October until the 1st of November. This matchmaking event will also join the Singapore Week of Innovation Technology and the Agri-Food Tech Expo Asia. So we're looking at agri-food, healthcare, biomedical tech, digital, smart cities, advanced manufacturing, and green tech. Same deadline extension, 2nd of August. So if you're interested in Singapore, please register for this. And last but not least, we're also interested in hearing your feedback for the cluster talks, the last one today before the summer break. So please share your feedback until the 1st of August via the link in the chat to let us know what you like, what you think, which topic we should address, and what else we can do to make these EU cluster talks useful to you. So many thanks in advance for your feedback on that. And with that, I hand back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, Nina, and thank you for sharing all those links in the chat. So anyone who didn't catch them, you can go and have a look in the chat for the links. We're going to go now, as promised, to this video showing us a short introduction to 30 years of the European single market. I absolutely love this. It's a blast from the past and will remind us how far we've come, prepared by the European Parliament. Let's have a look.
In the EU, you are free to live and work in any country you choose, study abroad, or sell and buy safe products on and offline. This is all thanks to the European single market, which is 30 years old. The foundations of the single market were laid in the 1980s, and in 1993 it became a reality. By then, Europe had almost completely harmonized standards on a whole host of goods.
Im neuen Jahr soll für unsere Bürger zum ersten Mal wirklich sichtbar und erfahrbar werden, dass sie in einer echten Gemeinschaft leben. In einer Gemeinschaft ohne Grenzposten und ohne Zollhäuschen.
Until 2006, services such as postal systems and transport still faced barriers. The European Parliament adopted numerous directives to make them more easily available across the EU. But the 2008 economic and financial crisis put the achievements of the single market at risk. In 2010, Parliament called for new momentum by focusing on protecting consumers and improving the market access of small businesses.
The Single Market Project is a project for everyone, for citizens, for consumers, for small enterprise, for large enterprise as well. Now what we need to do is to really make it speak to those people.
2012 saw further moves to develop the single market. Members of Parliament called for a better, more easily accessible digital economy that wouldn't discriminate against any customer or business. Part of that was abolishing roaming charges within the EU from June 2017. In 2022, MEPs gave their green light to the new Digital Markets and Digital Services Acts, an unprecedented set of rules to make the sector fair and competitive.
For a business user, the competition will work better. For the consumer who buy goods, they can feel more safe when they're buying goods.
The Digital Markets Act will introduce a new era of tech legislation, and in the future it will be the big tech companies that will have to prove to authorities that they abide by the law.
The single market is playing an increasingly important role in reaching the EU's climate goals. In 2022, MEPs backed a common charger for small electronic devices and are pushing for a right to repair goods, moves that will increase products' lifespans and reduce e-waste. The war in Ukraine and the COVID pandemic show that the single market can be a powerful tool in times of crisis. Parliament has welcomed proposals for an emergency instrument to make it more flexible and resilient.
As we are in times of crisis, today we also took a look at the single market always evolving through crises, how cooperation in the single market is the core and also the engine of European integration.
With the boom in internet shopping, in 2023 Parliament is pushing for stricter rules to increase the safety of products sold both on and offline.
If the product that you bought is recalled, you will be informed by email. If something goes wrong, you will have options. For instance, you want your product to be replaced, or you want to have the product repaired, or you want your money back. So you, as a consumer, will have a choice.
3 decades after its birth, the single market continues to evolve for the benefit of 31 countries and 450 million consumers. The European Parliament is shaping the path for safe, diverse and fair conditions on and offline.
Well, I'm not sure if that video makes me feel old or young, but it's certainly been quite a roller coaster of 30 years. So Jakob Bartinsky from DG Grow is with us now. Jakob, I know you're going to give us a run through, a whistle-stop presentation of the last 30 years. So I'm going to give the floor over to you and give us your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Good morning to everyone. It's a great pleasure to attend this edition of Cluster Talks. So indeed, this is the year where we are celebrating the 30 years of the single market. Well, it's definitely a great opportunity to look what we have managed, but I think also a moment of reflection of what's still ahead of us. So we have these 4 famous freedoms, freedom of movement of goods, services, people and capital. This is really the foundation of European integration. But I must say, that this is actually also a challenge for us, because people are so much used to live that reality that we somehow don't notice unless things stop working. And I think that has been a very powerful case during the pandemic, when we basically realized that this very seamless supply chain that we have in Europe, about which we don't think, basically trucks going from one part of the continent to the other, that this came to a stop. These figures are really staggering if you look at the single market. It's a domestic market of nearly 500 million people, EU member states, but let's also take into account that countries like Norway are also part of the single market. Cross-border trade in goods and services is worth over 1/5 of GDP in Europe, and it's basically calculated that with that basically openness of the single market, we are adding 8 to 9% of GDP on an annual basis. Well, we have clearly the opportunities related to the fact that we can move, capital, we can move goods, services, and people across the borders. That in a very practical way, if you run a business, you have definitely more opportunities to actually find your partners in Europe without any, let's say, additional red tape and formalities. That you can build long-term relationships. And I think what we have been again discovering in these times of crisis, in the times of the war, while in the past we always spoke about opportunities, new opportunities, I think we have to realize that this is basically a shield for us in these difficult times. That while we may perhaps less rely on the external world, the fact that we have this strong set of rules is really defending us. It is, so we have this very diversified supply network, and I think in that way we are able to protect companies from external shocks, and I think this is, essential. We have also seen in that context the role that clusters played, when we were able to quickly react in the first times of pandemics to identify shortages. And finally, single market of today, is for us obviously also a tool to pursue digital and green transition. With the challenge of climate change, I think we again can use the tools of single market to make sure that we are actually making, the companies to go through this revolution. And single market is indeed a tool to give everyone, offer benefits of economies of scale, and after all, makes us relevant in the global competition. So I think when we talk about, whether Europe still matters, how Europe can matter, of course, at the bottom of that is the fact that we have this very strong foundation. Well, we have to realize that this is definitely not static. We said 30 years ago, single market was created, but in reality, it's an ongoing and constant project. It's basically like a garden, like a forest that requires constant nurturing. If you look at these 4 freedoms, we clearly have made huge progress in terms of trade in goods. I think in the areas of services, we are still facing considerable obstacles. A recent report showed that 60% of barriers identified 20 years ago are still around us. I think that is indeed, a constant reminder that this is not something that we can just simply, celebrate, done, move on. No, it actually requires a constant vigilance. That's why, we are actually rolling out various measures, to make sure that things work. In this mandate of the Commission, we started with the Single Market Task Force, SMET, where we basically at a senior level try, to identify a faster way to eliminate obstacles. Commission has adopted, a few months ago in March, the big package of new, let's say, revolutionary proposals such as ZIA, critical raw materials, but also, we've adopted at that moment communication of the 30th anniversary of the single market. We have been again identifying ways how we can improve things. One of the ideas is establishment of single market offices in member states that could actually, try to as a coordinating factor in member states, and can hopefully also be the point of entry for companies, which actually in the practical daily functioning see the obstacles. This constant effort to improve business environment is essential, and I think we are also facing a challenge these days. We have this major regulatory push related to the Green Deal, and now I think there is a lot of realization that we need also to have let's say, measures that would ensure that we retain competitiveness, that we also help, SMEs to break through. Now, another, good example of that this is an ongoing project is after decades of efforts, we have now unitary patents, which enter into force more easily, that would allow companies across the single market to better protect and enforce the intellectual property rights. Finally, and I think this is also this realization that, there is really a lot of work ongoing. We had the recent announcement by the president in the beginning of this year about the need to cut, reporting burden by 25%. This actually is, I think, an opportunity to again look into what can be simplified for the companies. But I think definitely, I can see definitely there is a wider reflection on working on administrative burden, on elimination of the single market barriers. And I think this is also, as I said, it's an ongoing work. We welcome the recent announcement by the European Council saying about basically a new independent report about the single market, about its future, to which we will contribute. I think that would be also a great occasion to identify ways that, after European elections, the next Commission could also undertake to make sure that basically we remain in the race. And I think, what our discussions here and generally, and our engagement with clusters across Europe is for us indeed an excellent opportunity how to bring, this aspect of competitiveness, innovation to this discussion about how we will basically continue to shaping a single market in the years to come. So I wish you a very, fruitful exchange today. There would be my colleague also telling you a bit more about the single market. We will also tell you about the single market campaign on which we count basically on your participation. As I say, it is not just about celebration, but it's really, reaffirming the principles and making sure they work in practice for the benefit of European companies and citizens. Thanks a lot for your attention. Back to you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, Jakob. I think you've hit all the main points as well that we wanted to discuss today. But as you mentioned, we do have your colleague, Cristina Jimenez Estol, who is here to tell us about the benefits and the tools of the single market, also from DG Grow. Cristina, give us your presentation. We look forward to hearing it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. And I will just run quickly with some of the slides. You will receive them later for the presentation. And Nina, you can go directly to slide number 6. Because Jakob has already explained all the benefits of the single market in the big lines. And my part, I will then explain. He has also explained that it is a constant effort. And indeed, the single market works very well, but we all know that there are still obstacles, there are still problems. So it is a continuous effort to make it run as smoothly as possible and to make sure that these benefits reach everybody. So these tools that I'm going to present, there are some which are newer than others, but they also have been running for around 20 years, between 20 years, 25 years, 20 years, 15 years, so with different history. But they all boil down to help enforce the single market. So one of the first things is, okay, you need to be aware of which rights you have, but not only which rights, but which administrative requirements you have to do in each country in order to benefit from your rights. And we have also, I don't know, no, Jakob has not said, but we are moving towards this digital transition where more and more we are trying to connect all the administrations. We are trying to make sure that all the procedures are online and can be performed, and that the cross-border dimension of the single market does not create obstacles in itself. So if you can move to the next slide. I will explain. I don't know if you have heard about the single digital gateway and your Europe. Your Europe started with realizing, okay, we need to explain to people, to empower people, to let people know what are their rights in a very clear, simple language, not very legalistic. We have to give the practical information. It's not enough to say, yeah, yes, you can, you are free to move everywhere. There are rights and there are obligations. And usually we are stressing the rights and not enough the obligations or the details. And as in English said, the devil is in the details, and you have to know all this. So the idea was, okay, the idea is of your Europe and the single digital gateway, we will explain to people what are their rights, very clear, their obligations, and we will give access in time, because it's not yet there, to make the administrative formalities that they need to do online. If you can move to the next slide, please. So that was the single digital gateway. And in the single digital gateway, there is a regulation behind, which says that there are a list of procedures that need to be available online at the end of this year. So this is extremely important because, as you can see in this graphic, you see that your Europe, which I have just referred to, presents this information. Okay, so this is the entry, and then gives later there are 2 slides which I will not go very much in detail, but there are all the list of procedures that businesses and citizens must be able to perform online. And then you can imagine that also there is this principle that there should be an once only technical system, meaning that if you have provided once your data or your papers at a certain point in a procedure, this should be passed on to for another procedure if that is needed, and not every time putting the burden every time on companies, on the citizens to again and again give all the papers which administrations are supposed to already have in their power. And then what happens if things are not running as expected? Then I will come to explain that that your Europe also gives access to assistance services like Solvit, which I will explain later. The next slide, please. So as you can imagine, this is a huge effort, you know, to have behind all this repository of all the member states procedures, etc., that need to be done. In order to enable to do that, you need to have interoperability of the systems. So as I'm telling, this is huge. Is very intensive, and also, but it helps. Is an enormous exercise of transparency to realize how people are doing, how different it is, which quality the information they have, etc. Because again, it is not enough to say, yes, I have put the information online, but is this information accessible really? So next slide, please. So this is the list of all the information that has to be provided for citizens and for businesses. And, you know, the next slide shows which procedures have to be able to be performed online. And you can say which ones are for businesses and which one are for citizens. So this is end of 2023. So what will happen if some of these procedures are not online? So enforcement is, we call enforcement to the exercise of making sure that the laws that are on the paper are really translate really in reality, because it doesn't serve, and we see it very often, you know, that we have the rights, but then when it is the moment to bring it to the practice, there are all sorts of obstacles. So your Europe also gives the possibility to report all these obstacles with, I think it's the single market obstacles tool, but it is only a link within the website. Next slide, please. So, but what happens really if a company of a citizen knows about their rights, tries to make their procedures? Why, if these procedures are not working, we see, you can go to the next slide, please. You can see that a lot of the digital transformation is also creating obstacles, you know, appointments to do procedures that have to be made online, IBAN discrimination, so you want to pay your taxes from another account, and this country has not foreseen in their system that the IBAN of another country has letters and numbers, and they have not foreseen the letters. Many of these practical obstacles. So what happens if your rights are denied because of one of these practical obstacles or incorrect application of EU law? For that, we have Solvit, which is a network of public administrations, and the way they work is that they help businesses and individuals to solve problems related to an incorrect application of EU law in a very concrete cases. And it is supported by the Commission, which gives them the IT platform, gives them training, gives them advice when they are stuck or they don't know who's right, who's wrong. Next slide, please. And the way they work is also an online service. A business or a citizens can report their problem in an online complaint form. The first center, usually the center of the nationality of the business or the citizens, checks that the case falls within the competence of Solvit, meaning that there is a misapplication of EU law, that you are affected by the problem, and that there is this cross-border element. And then they prepare all the case and they send it to another Solvit center, their counterpart in the country of the authority. So the authority which has implemented the law incorrectly or created a practical obstacle. And the power is a power of conviction. They just try to see whether they can convince the national authority, explaining that their approach is incorrect and is creating a series of problems. And in most of the cases, they are convinced, more or less Solvit centers resolve around 80% of the cases. And in some cases, unfortunately, they clarify that the problem is due to the fact that there is a lack on the legislation. Next slide, please. Next slide. And next slide. The way we are interconnected for different policies, and the way that makes it possible is through IMI. There are several IT services. Solvit works on IMI, and but not only Solvit. If you go to the next slide, there are lots of areas where, in order to implement EU law, you need to be interconnected, and you need to be able to exchange information in multilingual way. So this is what IMI allows information authorities to do. Next slide, please. To exchange information in many policy areas and in many languages. Next slide, please. Next slide. All these slides are there for your reference. And then Jakub has already mentioned that there are new initiatives, we call them tools, high-level tools to think also about the obstacles, like the Single Market Enforcement Task Force. Next slide, please. And this is a joint forum which tries to identify the barriers from different sources. They use also Solvit to see the data, and they try to put everybody around the table to think about the processes that the users have to go, not so much from a legal perspective, irrespective of whether it is legal or not, to try to see, okay, if a business wants to do that, which steps they have to do, are they justified? Next slide, please. And the idea is to reduce the administrative burden, again, by convincing people to revise their processes by exchanging the good practices. And the projects they have been engaged on are on recognition of professional qualifications. Is really needed for certain professions to be regulated. Are the prior checks for service provision on professional qualifications justified. This declaration on the obligation for service providers, can it be speed up? Can it be simplified? And they are now working on the permits for wind and solar energy and IBAN discrimination. I'm sorry if I had speed up a little bit. The presentation was a bit long, but I'm available for questions, and I will stay with you if you need in the debate, in the following debate, to reply to your questions and to engage in the debate. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Christina. And as you said, we will be able to share all those slide decks after the event. So I promised that we would have a little bit of Slido interaction this morning. So please do use your browser or your smartphone, go to slido.com or slido.do, either works. You don't need to download anything. It's very GDPR friendly. You can join anonymously, or you can scan that QR code that you see on the screen and it will take you directly there. If you go via your browser, you put in the hashtag single market, and you will be able to see the screen where we will have our first polling question. It's an open question. What is the biggest single achievement of the single market? You can type in your answers, so please do put in what your thoughts are, and we can all put them as a collaboration, I suppose, or perhaps support. Harmony, I guess, is the big one, because of course harmonization is important. Freedom, I think we would say that as well. Wondering if there's anybody else typing. We can see people typing, so I'm going to put in one as well for myself. Okay, and we've got more people putting in options. Freedom there, obviously the biggest. The way this works is that the bigger the word, the more people have used it. So I think if we can get up to about, I don't know, 10 or 12 people with their thoughts. I know it takes a minute or two to log in. Okay, so we've got cooperation, EU integration, EU matters. Well, I think that's possibly a given from today's audience. Flexibility, knowledge sharing, business opportunities, collaboration creates new opportunities for people and businesses. We can also see boosting competitiveness and growth. Collaboration, free cooperation, common framework, a lot of overlap there as well. Knowledge sharing, I think, is probably a big one for us here in our discussion today. I'm going to give it another couple of participants typing, so we'll see what they come in with. But absolutely, freedom seems to be the biggest one of all. And I'm presuming that's about freedom of movement of goods. And Erasmus there, getting a smiley face just at the last minute. EU integration, of course. Exchange of workers, another one that's just come up. Let's move on to our second question. I think there was a lot there. What is, and this is where we have to think oppositely, the biggest barrier to the single market? Hope people have thought about this as well. It's sometimes easier to identify the positives than the problems with this. So put your thinking caps on. What is the biggest barrier to the single market? What is stopping us getting it right? Obviously, fragmentation, external forces, I think also a big one. Regional regulations, so I suppose that's a lack of horizontal regulation, lack of joined up. Economic disparities and cohesion. I think probably economic realities is going to be a big barrier for a lot of things, despite the best and most laudable aims. National regulations, regional regulations, possibly, yes, non-EU level regulations, I guess, yeah. That's coming up again, and I see that, okay, changing of different new technical regulations, administrative burden, I think that's new, legal internal rules, a lot of these are overlapping. Fear of competition is new. I think that's ideas of what might motivate different regions or different nationalities. Movement of services, also a barrier, struggle, administrative capacity and practices. So I'm noting down some of these, but administrative burdens, different rules in different places. These are obviously the biggest barriers to the single market. And of course, the single market trying to do away with all of those various barriers. So finally, let's go on to our last question, which is one that this group of people should be best able to answer. And what is the main task of clusters? in the single market. What is the main task of the clusters? We're all here working around the area of clusters, so presumably a lot of you have strong ideas. Is it to foster that collaboration, to support that collaboration? Let's see what people think. I guess looking for opportunities, or to provide opportunities, find those opportunities and get them out to the right people, provide information, join forces, secure sector competitiveness, drive the green transition. We mentioned at the very beginning, as I believe, the twin transitions, so the green and digital transitions. So connectivity and networking, strengthening the culture of business collaboration, and then also informing people, academia, R&D, networking, industry, bridging. Okay, I'm really impressed with this. We've got more answers and more different answers on this question than any of the previous ones. So I think networking has come out as the main one, but it's probably second only to some of the others about collaboration, because if we put them all together under one umbrella, we'd see that collaboration was probably effective support to SMEs, also very important. I think we've got a lot happening there. I can't read it all out in the time I have, but there's some great words that we can take away, because we're going to go now to our panel discussion. And we have, staying with us, Jakob, thank you very much. Also joining us, the president of the European Clusters Alliance, Antonio Novo. Daniel Kosnita is president of Clustero, and Christina Shemek-Snaiti-Aleshinine is the cluster manager of the Agri-Food Lithuania and also European Cluster Manager of the Year 2022. So thank you all very much for joining us. I would invite you all to put your cameras on. Let me start, Antonio, with you. We've already heard from Jakob, so I'll jump straight, Antonio, to you. What do you think would be your answer to those Slido questions? Let's take that sort of first one. What are the biggest achievements of the single market from a cluster perspective?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Jennifer, for question. From our perspective, it's very important the fact that the single market has allowed us to create extended networks and to facilitate the involvement of the SMEs on a bigger market, reducing barriers and creating opportunities for them to grow. That is extremely important, because that is what we do, you know. So through the cluster support provided by the single market program, for example, now, we have been able to engage with the SMEs on the real opportunities that the European economy is providing for them in terms of growth, but also to align them with the European priorities, you know, to have a common goal for growth, for example. And that is something critical now, that we are facing the challenges coming from the green transformation or the digital transformation. That those are excellent examples of how the single market is able to align and facilitate those efforts between the companies through intermediaries as clusters.
Thank you. Daniel, what are your thoughts? What would have been your answer to the question and what the clusters bring to the digital single market?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. So from the Romanian perspective, it is clear that the single market and the free trade has brought immense advantages for Romanian economy in general. It would not have been thinkable, for Romania to develop without the European Union and without being part of the European Union and by being part of the single market. From a cluster perspective, I think that the main advantage is the increased visibility and the increased cooperation between clusters, Romanian clusters, and other European clusters, which in its turn brought to a more intense cooperation between SMEs, so between Romanian SMEs and other European SMEs. So and of course this leading to economic development again. So it would have been much more difficult to come now to class. It would have been much more difficult for a Romanian SME to get in contact and to do business with another European SME. We are talking about SMEs, so not big companies, not big investments. Like we are talking about SMEs. So it would have been much more difficult for a Romanian SME to get in contact and to do business with other European SMEs without the clusters, which had paved the way and eased this cooperation process.
Well, let me turn, Christina, to you with the same question. What do you think have been the big key advantages of the single market from the clusters perspective?
Well, thank you very much for your question, dear Jennifer. Good morning to everyone. Good morning to all the participants and colleagues in the panel. Well, first of all, I always like to say, so what is the cluster by the end of the day? As Jakub Boratinsky has mentioned in the beginning, single market, it's still evolving. It is not the same as we have seen it in the beginning. It's an ongoing process. So I see that with the clusters, it's very similar. Has the concept, even the concept, the activities has changed from the original theoretical base, what it used to be. Clusters used to be some kind of identities cooperating together on the geographically based area. It still exists that way, but nowadays, when we talk with all the clusters, with the community, we like to call that clusters are already innovative ecosystems where companies, SMEs are creating shared values. It's very important, right? So, and constantly those ecosystems are taking new roles. They're doing new activities. And I think these are the most important things that we have not imagined before, that we're going to be collaborating and working together and building, innovations, connecting the regions together, connecting the countries together. And this is the main thing, that you can build on the values. And when you turn actually to the clusters, we talk about the twin transition and what kind of role they can take in it. But also there is what we see nowadays, that we even talking about the triple transition, adding the energy. So it's a Green Deal, digitalization, and energy transition, what we need to go with. And clusters are taking actually very clear roles in digitalization, industrial transformation, building strategic EU value chains, working on the national short value chains, and of course, building the resilience to the crisis. And we've seen very good examples. For example, during the first big crisis that we've been facing, that was COVID. And clusters were those organizations really that they saw the least impact on their members, on the SMEs, which were the part of the clusters. And clusters actually helped to go through those crises, to continue with the competitiveness, with the building the new products, the new initiatives, and etc., etc. So it's not that we only talk that there is a shared value. We can actually see by examples. We can practically see what's going on. And I really like that probably everywhere now we go, everyone's talking about this collaboration, networking. So this is the main thing. And when I get asked, so what is the main success, how to be successful as a cluster? So probably networking and collaboration. This is the main thing. And that's what single market is about.
Thank you. Jakub, to come back to you, I'm sure you were watching those Slido results coming in. What was your take on it? Whether were you surprised, or would you have answered similarly to many of our participants?
Thanks a lot. Very interesting exchange. You know, what I would say that what many of you have said, I mean, this importance of collaboration, networking, I mean, makes me feel that indeed we are kind of operating at two levels. I mean, one is indeed, you know, our, let's say, primary, like a basic responsibility is to making sure that basically single market, ultimately it's an enabling good environment for the companies to actually do business, to be able to expand, to scale up, you know, and take full advantage of this economies of scale. But then I think I realized probably over the years, we realized how important it is to actually, you know, come up with different measures that would create, I would say, this sometimes invisible glue, you know, this kind of connection, you know. Of course, there is a business logic which would always work on its own without any sort of public encouragement and facilitation. But I think especially if you think about, you know, this innovation potential, the growth potential, we need to be able to actually offer more opportunities for SMEs, for, let's say, more lean, smaller, let's say, entities. And I think in that clusters are actually one of these efforts, you know, to bring different types of players together and actually establish, you know, links, I would say also personal relationships based on trust across the borders, because well, you know, whether it's business or another area of life, I think trust is of the essence. And I think I can also see basically this effort as a you know, as a big exercise in trust building. And I think that is something that we need for the single market to succeed, not as an abstract concept, but basically as a tool to benefit, you know, companies and citizens.
I think so, and we shouldn't take for granted how difficult trust can be to build. One of those answers to our question was fear of competition. So, you know, trust is one of the ways to overcome that. Let me remind everyone that as a participant, you are welcome to join the conversation. You can do so by raising your hand, and we'll put you on camera or on video or on audio. You can also use the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat as well, and I see Mike Richardson has asked if people have more talking points or more actual in-depth examples. He mentions there the common charger, which is something we've talked about. We saw during the video, we saw the roaming charges as examples of benefits of the single market. If anyone, particularly our panel speakers, have any concrete examples, please bring those into your answers, because we do want to be able to point to those as real solutions. Let me come back to you, Antonio. Where do you see room for improvement?
Okay, there are, of course, room for improvement. I will say that we need to improve the support of the SMEs on the crisis situation, you know. For example, when we are facing the problems of providing microchips, or when, of course, in situations like the COVID, but we need to improve that crisis preparedness and resilience, you know, and it's still a pending point. So we need to strengthen our linkages, have a more complete mapping of our resources, our dependencies, and how to solve them, you know. That is, I think, critical for us. Also, we need to improve the simplification and standardization, you know, at the European level, because we need to grow based on that standardization. That is a very important contribution from the single market, but it's still pending to be developed on many areas, you know. So it's very important, because it's the kind of regulation that allows us for better collaborate between companies, between countries, also between projects. And clusters are doing a strong work on that area, you know, because we put together for many projects companies coming from different countries and with strong capacities to create that proposals on that way. And I will say that we need to improve also the support for SMEs, meaning that, in my opinion, there are that support has many different tools. Okay, cluster is, for me, one of the key tool for supporting SMEs. Okay, and for example, in the case of clusters, there are very different supporting realities if you compare the most advanced countries for the lagging regions or countries at European level. There are some that doesn't have a real formal support to cluster environments or very weak. So we need to also be more cohesive on that support for the SMEs and for the entities that support the SMEs, because it's true that as they are, they need that support, you know. So I will suggest to improve that at European level and with stronger plans and probably an improved awareness of the importance of those measures.
Well, you mentioned the microchips question, which is obviously something that comes under possibly external forces when we look at the full length of microchip supply chain. But it strikes me that that is a little bit about preparedness and foresight. Christine, do you think that, that the clusters within the single market can help us with foresight and preparedness for the sorts of crises that you mentioned? Because if we can see something coming, we're in a better position to inoculate ourselves against it.
Yes, well, all what things said, Antonio, I really agree. And I think clusters is a key tool, actually, you know, to strengthen the single market and help with those crises, actually, because we are seeing those by the examples. We've been gathering, for example, information due to the geopolitical changes when we were facing the shortages, the breakage of the value chains. Clusters were the first ones, the front runners, who actually step up and said, okay, now what we can do, where we can turn, because, you know, as a cluster, as a community, as an ecosystems, you can very quickly interact. And this is very important. And I strongly agree with Antonio that there are some also places for improvement. As for the regulations, we still face differentialities between member states, between regions, and etc. But well, I guess we're evolving in that, and we're expecting, you know, more to come. The more we act together, again, the more we act as a single body, as a single market, then the more easier it's going to be to make those changes and move forward. And as I said, for example, what we've been doing, the survey in Baltic states on the cluster challenges due to the geopolitical changes, due to war, for example, we had this in Lithuania, we had this challenge with the China and etc. And what we've noticed that clusters actually were facing the least of the challenges, the members of the clusters. And why? Because in a group, we could reorientate ourselves very quickly and to find the new markets, to start working with others. Again, why? What's the reason behind that? Because the cluster can really bring the knowledge very quickly to the ones who need it. And clusters actually are the main knowers, the knowledge holders of the members. So they really are into the SMEs, into the sector. Again, when we talk that it's very important cross-sectorial collaboration. So it's not just, you know, it's for the SMEs, it would be very hard, you know, to just collaborate between them. But when you act as a different ecosystems, different sector ecosystems as a clusters, so it becomes very easy. I've noticed we've been participating in many different initiatives, cross-regional, and I've noticed that probably in all the biggest initiatives, there comes the clusters. Again, why? Because they bring already the ecosystem full of SMEs with the collaboration with needed academia, with the different, for example, for the innovations needed testing facilities, implementations, knowledge, where are the challenges, what we really need to do that. And I think clusters have also played a huge role, for example, in boosting startups. I can really see many good examples when clusters are the also front runners, you know, in boosting the startup ecosystems, not on the national scale, but cross-regional, on regional scale, across EU, and even bringing the startups, the potential startups knowledge, for example, from the other parts of the world to EU, which is also very important.
Daniel, a question for you, again, looking to the future and talking about the challenges facing the single market. Are they going to be the same challenges that we've already seen in the past that we still need to overcome? Or are there going to be fresh hurdles due to different things like digitalisation, like the crises around energy? Or is it just business as usual? These are the areas we still need to tackle.
Yes, so there are old challenges and new challenges. One of the old challenges which will go on is the innovation gap. So Jakob talked at the beginning of the barriers that 60% are still around us. So we see that the innovation gap has not let's say between the eastern part and the western part has not diminished. On the contrary, so innovation gap continues to raise. So it is important to continue to support the raise of the innovation level in the European SMEs. So, for example, here, and this can be done. The European Commission has set several. Yes, there are several programs supporting this, also with non-financial instruments like the Enterprise Europe Network, like the European Cluster Collaboration Platform, like the Digital Innovation Hubs, which are supporting this. In the end, okay, digitalization, I see it as a part of the innovation. So we need further to support the increase of the level of innovation in SMEs. So this is one of the old challenge, and this will go on. And if we think like that, let's say on the global perspective, the European SMEs in general need to become more innovative. Yeah, we are in a global world. There are global challenges and competitors like Japan, like China, like United States. Yes, and so on. So we need to be front runners in this innovation competition. So this is an old challenge, which will always be. So I think a new challenge now, and this came out of the problems that we have had in the last years and the pandemics, and so we see the disruptions in the value chains. And I think here it's where the clusters have a very huge role to play, because clusters by definition are generators of value chains. And we have seen also in the times of pandemic, the European Clusters Alliance has responded immediately to these challenges, and we have seen also results. But because you have asked about foresight, yes, we can, and okay, we can respond to this value chain problem, but also because clusters are dialogue partners for the regional authorities which are developing, or national, which are developing the regional innovation strategies, or the national innovation strategies, the regional development plans, and so on. So, and then clusters can play a role also in the foresight process. So in building up the development scenarios at regional level, in regions in the member states, at macro regional level, we are talking about the Danube region or Alpine space, and so on. This is also important. And of course, by summing this up, we come at the European level, and then we have so clusters can then play a role in this building up of development scenarios. So yeah, innovation is a challenge, the value chains are a challenge, and this the future, so the vision for the development of the European competitiveness in general.
Well, Jakob, let me bring that to you. I mean, I'm struck by what's here, and because, of course, clusters are talking and collaborating with so many different players, including, in particular, SMEs, that can almost sort of function as an early warning system in some ways when it comes to foresight.
I mean, absolutely. We clearly have seen it, during the pandemics, that we had very valuable signals about, supply chain issues. I would say again the fact that the clusters are they have basically the exposure to all sorts of issues, regulatory barriers at a local level, the challenges related to collaboration and taking to the market, with scientific institution taking basically to the market, the results of innovation. So I think I see basically our collaboration with the clusters also in the long term as a resource for us of understanding what is happening on the ground and how actually we can have a proper feedback policy loop for the purpose, of adapting our policies. And I would say now I already mentioned that we will have this. There will be this report coming up in the spring on the future of the single market, which I think we will definitely make sure that the cluster, the contribution to this vision would be there. But and of course, then we will have a basically next college, and the opportunity to look into the challenges, because as we have all agreed, the single market is something that again requires a constant effort from all our sides. So I think in that we can be with you together. And for Daniel, just maybe one specific comment. You not only you, but I think you have been also mentioning these other networks, and I almost constantly see this as a new opportunities. I had basically participated recently in a meeting of technology transfer offices from across Europe, which is managed by Joint Research Center of the Commission. And again, of course, some of them are very much related to the clusters community, some are not. But I think again that is a very interesting area of possible collaboration, exactly to address the issues that Daniel was speaking about. So thanks a lot. Back to you, Jennifer.
Well, Daniel mentioned the innovation gap. Antonio, I know you are focused a little bit on another gap, the skills gap. So let me give you the floor to tell us a bit about where you see issues there.
Yeah, it's an excellent example, because it's the single market is about regulations and recognition of realities, and now we are facing a strong challenge on providing industry with the skills that we need for a very quick, very rapid, and very flexible adaptation to the new rules at global level, to the new competitive business rules, and opportunities. And so we are working on it. We are organizing trainings and sandboxes and demonstrators, all those activities that enable our companies to gain on capabilities, okay? But we are outside of the normal rules, I would say. So we need a quick reaction and quick adaptation of our single market programs and our member states regulation to to insert this kind of approaches, very quick, very flexible on the new procedures, and as the entities that are so close to the SMEs and large company realities, to the industry realities, we are those that can help that regulation to be created, to be agile on the adaptation of the global framework.
Christina, I'm going to ask you in a second about the digital single market. But first of all, I want to remind participants that this is probably your last moment to get a question in if you want to use the Q&A function or you want to raise your hand. We've got some opportunities to go before I go a roundup of the panel, a closing round. But Christina, the digital single market is, of course, one of the elements of the single market. How developed do you feel it is? Are we on the right track? What just gives in a sort of a brief nutshell where we are with that and how that feeds more generally into the single market?
Yes, well, it's a great question. Well, I see again, I'm going to say the same thing, that I see clusters as the front runners for the creating digital market also. And here is why. Because we just got a new initiative which is started by European Commission, European Digital Innovation Hubs. So again, clusters were the ones that are participating in all those new initiatives and creating those platforms on national levels, for example, for the digital to be implemented and to create a digital market. And again, why, for example, I've seen many examples when clusters participate at the creating policies such as smart specialization priorities on the national levels. And again, in this industry transitions, it is not easy. We've been facing and seeing a lot of challenges in the digitalization, and we've been talking about those challenges a lot. And clusters are the ones that bringing needed knowledge, skills, as mentioned by Antonio also, which is very important. We've been facing that skills for the artificial intelligence, for the digitalization overall, what we are talking about, high performance computing, big data, and et cetera, et cetera. So we actually not only need the new competences coming, but we need to upskill the people in order, to participate in the new digital market, upcoming digital market. And again, which was mentioned, I believe, by Jakub Boratinsky, trust. With the digital single market, we've been hearing a lot of, also not so assured SMEs talking that maybe it's gonna be more challenges or more not that many of the opportunities. So the trust lays also in the platform, in the background of building on digital single market. And here clusters bring that trust, because when you create the trust, when you have the right knowledge, when you feel that you are supported. So again, clusters are those organizations, those ecosystems, this community, supporting SMEs. And SMEs, this is the backbone of EU single market overall. So with the digitalization, I could say we are proceeding quite well. And with all those new initiatives coming as European digital innovation hubs, the digital innovation hubs still existing, we are quite achieving new goals. And clusters again are all the way in all the parts of the initiatives, and are the main players and the main front runners and bringing those initiatives to life. We've been experiencing in many cases, for example, we just started with Antonio and in European Clusters Alliance, the new initiative to map which clusters are the part of the European Digital Innovation Hub. So because we've been seeing so many examples, that clusters actually are making the impact. And we always say that we need to map those points in order to make the bigger impact. So again, yeah. And we, by the way, now with the listeners and participants who are the part of the European Digital Innovation Hubs, who are participating in Digital Innovation Hubs, you are very welcome, to contact with us and to continue also working together.
Thank you. Well, we have a question in from Marta asking, can clusters participate in the works of the SMET task force, the Single Market Enforcement Task Force? And if so, how can we contribute? I'm not sure who might be best placed to answer that. Perhaps Cristina Jimenez, if you are still there, would you be able to answer that question?
Yes, I'm still there.
Thank you.
Yes, well, the SMET decides which issues they tackle, depending on the data they receive from different sources. So I would say, so there are two different groups, a high-level group and a technical group, and they decide which are the issues they will tackle. So I would say that the way of bringing a new subject for discussion of the SMET depends on data and the willingness of the representatives of the SMET to take this challenge or to take this subject. So I cannot, there is not a procedure where very well established, you know, it remains an informal mechanism of discussion, and I think they try to identify which are the barriers where they will be able to act in the most successful way, you know, where there are other things they will not be able to tackle.
Thank you very much, Christina. Martha, I hope that's gone some way to answering your question, but perhaps reach out afterwards to get some more information that's more directly pertinent to you. We're going to just go for a quick final round of comments. Jakob, briefly tell me how you see the future development of clusters in the single market. Christina, in her very first intervention, mentioned new roles and ecosystems. What's your takeaway that we should be thinking about on this 30th birthday occasion?
Thanks a lot. You know, I think that this community is becoming more and more mature across Europe. I think Cluster Collaboration Platform is an initiative, you know, bringing everyone to the fore. I think that, you know, we with the strategic investment that we at the Commission level do in Euro clusters, you know, we are hoping, you know, we are basically, you know, helping the very sort of, you know, established players to have quite a major influence on these key challenges for the European economy and industry. And I think I see basically clusters as a big accelerator. I would like personally that we will find good ways of reflecting this policy in an exercise that would actually be happening in the beginning of the next mandate, which would be a reflection on the new multi-annual financial framework, that we basically have the right set of tools, you know, to tackle all, you know, a number of these challenges. But Jennifer, I would really like to kind of not to speak too long. I still hope that we will have a moment for Rafa to tell us about the campaign. So, okay.
Yes, we're not going to start on the MFF now. That's just
better
too much for a July morning.
Yeah.
I think, Daniel, a takeaway from you on how we develop best for the future. Who needs to be involved? Are we on the right track?
Yes, we are on the right track. So I think clusters, what is their main, if we have to sum up, they are resilient. Yeah, they are resilient because it is like a convoy of vessels, or like a flock of birds. I don't know. So the SMEs are the birds, and the clusters are the one. And they are resilient. Whatever comes, a storm, or I don't know. In the clusters, in the flock, of birds, the birds are better off than if they fly alone. So this is the main role of I think one of the main roles of the clusters, and they are floating through these storms. We have seen it, and this they will do in the future. So they are resilient because the power rise in the network. So the resilience, this is the main main word, let's say.
And Christina, your takeaway?
Yeah, so if just for summing up, I should say, so clusters really can act, and they do, as a partners, then developing and implementing twin transition. As I said, now with the energy, also helping with the energy transition. Also, clusters are experts, as we talked, in building partnerships and bridging between multiple stakeholders, and of course the SMEs. So this is a big role. And clusters, which is very important, hold main competences required to support overall green transition, digital transition, energy transition, building resilience in the economy, and helping for the SMEs on that. And of course, building interclusters, cross-sectorial clusters, cross-sectorial collaboration, Euro clusters. It could be actually the new step and the key step to building new digital, resilient, and innovative economy in the EU.
Antonio, I'm going to wrap up with you for the panel. Looking forward, Are there any concrete examples we should be watching out for? What is your advice to us as we take away?
Thank you. I think that Jakub was very precise and clever on what we need. Okay, we need to make another jump. We need to think on the next 30 years of the single market, and we need to improve the recognition and the strengths of the networks to facilitate the growth at the European level. So we need to and that is an invitation for the next program, you know, for the next 7 years, or just to recognize clusters and to make a stronger regulation, not only at the European level, but also at national and regional level, that creates the right environments for us and for the rest of the actors. I mean, it's as Jakub said, we are not alone. There are others, digital innovation hubs, European Enterprise Network. We need to grow together because everyone covers some role that is critical for our market, you know, but that needs to be evolved. We need to grow on recognition and on regulation over it, facilitating our role. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed to Jakob, Antonio, Daniel, and Christina. We were very high level. We had a lot to cover, but 30 years squeezed into one panel is a lot. Christina Jimenez, thank you for coming back, because we have just one question I've seen pop up at the very end for you, asking the role and place of the single market offices. Tell us just quickly what we know about that. I think you're on mute.
Excuse me. Yes, I wrote it in the panel. The role, the exact role and functioning of the single market office is still has to be defined, and therefore the implementation and the start time is, I'm sorry to say that it's too early to say, so we will have to, but in my view, personal view, it will take some time. It's still not completely mature.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Andrea, for the question. You just got it in there before the time. But we can now turn to definite concrete things with dates and times. Opportunities for the 30th anniversary of the single market. To tell us about that, Rafael Rudnicki is Head of Sector for Communications, Campaigns, Events and Outreach in DG Grow. Rafael, tell us about those opportunities. Take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I've been told that I have 5 minutes. And since I was working in the radio station before, 5 means 5. So I would not be longer than that. So I would like to start from with the timeline, maybe the list of events that are still planned. We are finalizing now the social media campaign related to the online quiz. I will tell you a couple of words about this later. Then at the end of August, we start the traveling exhibition. And here you have 3 more key events that we are going to organize by the end of this year, including the SME Assembly in Bilbao and then the European Enterprise Network annual conference in Bilbao. So let's go maybe to the online quiz. We started on this campaign on Instagram on the 12th of June. And it is over actually today at midnight. So you still can go either via Instagram or our webpage and try to answer all those 6 questions. And then you see how difficult they are, or maybe easy for you. So let's play. And I must tell you that we are very proud of results, because I checked the number of submissions 10 minutes ago, and we are having almost 50,000 submissions. And there is a prize, as you can see, 2 rail passes to win, the 2 tickets for valid for the month for Interrail. So it is a nice prize to have, and this is the quiz that was designed for younger Europeans. So people need to be informed about the benefits of the single market. Now, if we could skip to the traveling exhibition that we are going to start at the end of August. It will not look entirely like that. We are still discussing the issues with the contractor, but I just wanted to give you an idea. It's a rollout box, so we will have a flexibility. We can go somewhere, you know, small city, town, market, something like that. We know for now that we are starting in Slovenia during the Black Strategic Forum and the Youth Strategic Forum day before, so the end of August. Then we will go to Bulgaria and Romania mid-September, and then more countries will be tackled, not only this year, because this campaign will be continued and will also be up and running until European elections. So for now we have 10 countries, but it will be definitely more. And the main goal is to inform about the benefits of the single market for those who are traveling and, for example, having some international, relations in that context, and for those who are staying and also could benefit. Next slide, please. This was about the traveling exhibition, but of course on our webpage, the 30th anniversary webpage, you have a map. And I'm still asking you very kindly, if you organize any event related to the single market or the 30th anniversary of the single market, please inform us about it. We can help you with some promotional materials, some roll-ups, some backdrops, whatever you need, because it's important that all the events that are organized within the member states are encoded, and we are aware of this. Of course, we know that many events are organized by representations of the European Commission, also by the Europe Direct network, but of course, clusters are also very active. So if you organize something, or if you're aware of an event, please also send me an email, and we will make sure that this will be published on this map. Currently, we have on gray the number of past events, blue and yellow, those are upcoming events. So please help us with this map. And of course, please follow our social media channels, because there you can have all the information about the actions and campaigns that we are planning. And of course, help us when I mentioned about this traveling exhibition and online quiz. You can still share the information. You can help us in disseminating of information. And the last slide, when I'm thanking for your attention, you have, for those who are not maybe familiar with this, but probably most of you are, this is the address of our Single Market 30th anniversary page. And this is the 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your radio training is showing there, Rafael. Thank you very much. And I do love a quiz. So we've got the links in the chat for that. We're going to turn now back to Nina for our usual roundup of funding opportunities. So Nina, I'll hand over to you.
Many thanks, and I'll be quick. We want to highlight the new calls that are published by the Euro clusters. They were mentioned in the panel debate. They're the joint cluster initiatives, flagship initiative for clusters that come together to provide support for SMEs. And there are two that are published newly with the deadline in September. First one is the Resist Euro cluster that provides internationalization support in conferences, exhibitions, trade fairs, in-person matchmakings, bilateral business meetings for the automotive transport and mobility ecosystem. This call is open until the end of 2024, but it has several cutoff dates, and the first cutoff is on the 8th of September. So this is available for SMEs in the automotive and mobility ecosystem. And the LB Europe cluster has an innovation call for offshore renewable energy. So they defined 8 specific challenges that they codified with big companies, and these companies commit to collaborate with SMEs to answer to these challenges. So very concrete innovation potential here for offshore renewable energy. SMEs can apply for this until the 30th of September. And of course, there are still many calls open from the Euro clusters, open during the summer, so SMEs can apply to the different deadlines and to the different Euro clusters that cover the industrial ecosystems, for example. You see here, there's a call open architecture, engineering, construction, for AI and blockchain, manufacturing, water smart solution, new tourism products, digitalisation, greening for the creative and cultural industries. And I switch to the next one. There are opportunities in green manufacturing, energy intensive industries, provide innovation service for the defense sector, and of course also networking marketing, for example, in the automotive mobility transport. All these calls are published on the Cluster Collaboration platform. So you go to clustercollaboration.eu/open-calls and you find the opportunities for SMEs provided by the Euroclusters. And hopefully there will be some calls that are interesting for the SMEs in your clusters.
Thank you very much, Nina. And it feels a bit like end of term today because we're taking a summer break. Back on the 6th of September for EU Strategic Foresight, 20th September, EU Funding Opportunities 1, and 27th of September, EU Funding Programs 2. So please do check those out and register for them online. And of course, you can continue the conversation online. If you missed anything today, you can see it. We have recorded this session and you will be able to find it on the European Cluster Collaboration platform. If you want to click through using that QR code, it'll take you straight there, and you can find partners and so on. We know all this, everyone's familiar with this, but I do hope that if you are taking a summer break, you have a great one, and we hope to see everyone again in September. Have a good day.